I'm 38 years old and I have fed people for a living for 12 of those years. Tours, festivals, corporate gigs, the kind of work that keeps you on the road 8 months out of the year and teaches you that the world is run by people most folks never see. The crew, the hands, the ones who build the magic and break it down at 2 in the morning while the artist is already asleep on the bus. That's me. I'm the woman making sure there's hot food at midnight for 100 exhausted people you'll never know the names of. So when the call came for the Eternal Sunshine Tour, I didn't scream the way my daughter did when I told her. I was practical about it. The pay was the best I'd ever been offered. The crew had a clean reputation. And after the divorce, after the house got quiet in that specific way, a house gets quiet when someone's gone. I needed the road more than the road needed me. I needed somewhere to be that wasn't the empty side of a bed. My daughter has Ariana Grande lyrics written on her bedroom wall in silver marker. She's 16. When I told her where I was going, she made a sound I didn't know she could make. Mom, Mom. She is literally everything. I don't fully understand it, that kind of devotion, but I remember being 16 and feeling like a song was the only thing that understood me. So I smiled and told her I'd get her an autograph. I called my sister that night. I'm about to spend the next several months making sure Ariana Grande has organic strawberries at exactly room temperature, I told her, living the dream. She laughed and told me to behave myself and get her kid assigned something. Normal. It was all so normal. That's the part I need you to understand before any of the rest of it. How normal it started. Because if it had felt wrong from the beginning, I would have left. I'm not a woman who walks toward bad feelings. I'm a woman who finishes what she starts. Ask anyone who's ever worked a loadout with me at 4 in the morning in the rain. I don't quit. That detail is going to matter later. Hold on to it. The scale of the production humbled me, and I don't humble easy. 12 years in, and I stood in that empty arena on the first load-in day and felt small. The rigging went up into the dark like the bones of something prehistoric. Forklifts beeping, the percussion of road cases slamming open, echoing off 20,000 empty seats, the smell of the place, cold steel, fresh cut flowers, the warm bread smell off my own catering setup. I felt useful. I felt purposeful. I slept better those first few nights than I had in 2 years. And I want you to remember that too, that I slept well at first. The catering team was 5 people I liked inside the first week, which never happens. Garrett had 20 years on production and a way of going quiet that I'd learned to read later. Deb was 52 and had seen everything and said almost nothing. Good people, the kind you trust with your back. I didn't meet her that first week. I just saw her. End of the corridor, between the dressing rooms, a small figure swallowed by an oversized hoodie, moving fast, an assistant on each side. I want to be honest about what I noticed, because it wasn't her size, though even from that distance, the thinness registered somewhere in the back of my mind. What I noticed was the quiet, not that things got quiet, that the air itself seemed to change pressure when she passed through it, the way your ears feel before a storm. I blinked, and the corridor was loud again. Walkie-talkies, laughter. I told myself it was nothing. I had inventory to count. Then there were the lilies, standing daily order. White lilies, fresh, every venue, every city, no substitutions. Talent writers are always specific, so I didn't think twice until the second city, when the delivery came and Garrett went still beside me, just looking at them. I asked him what was wrong. He looked at those flowers a long moment and said, "Nothing. Just noticed, that's all." He didn't explain. I didn't push. Opening night, I watched from a side corridor on the monitor. But I wasn't watching her. I was watching the crowd. 18,000 people, arms raised, eyes closed, mouths open, swaying in a rhythm nobody taught them. It stopped me mid-task, serving spoon in my hand, and a thought arrived whole and unwelcome. That doesn't look like a concert. That looks like something else entirely. I didn't finish the thought. I went back to work. That night I called my daughter. She asked what Ariana was like, and I realized I hadn't spoken to her once. I told her I'd get the autograph. She said, "Mom, she is everything." I fell asleep easy. It was the last easy sleep I'd have for a long time. One week. That's all it had been. I have to keep reminding myself of that because it doesn't feel like 1 week. It feels like I've been inside this thing for a month. Like the tour has its own time, its own gravity, and the longer you stay inside it, the harder it gets to remember what regular time felt like. I've done long tours before. I know road fatigue. This wasn't that. This was something else. And I didn't have a word for it yet, so I kept borrowing the wrong ones. We'd moved from Oakland Arena to Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles by then. 3 nights in Oakland, then straight into LA. Different cities, different crews, different vendors, but the same show. The same destroyed house at the center of the stage with plants growing up through the wreckage. The same white lilies arriving every evening and wilting by morning. I'd stopped mentioning it to the vendor after the second Oakland night. I didn't know how to explain what I was seeing without sounding like I'd already lost my mind and I'd only been here 7 days. I knew what she ate. That was part of my job, coordinating the talent rider, tracking what came back. And what came back was wrong. Not just light, not just picked at, barely touched. Tray after tray, Oakland to Los Angeles, meals that went out full and came back like she'd looked at them from across the room and decided against it. I said nothing. I'm the catering coordinator, not her doctor, not her mother. But I noticed. I cataloged it the way I catalog everything. Quietly, precisely, without knowing yet why it mattered. I noticed other things too. The way the Law Roach costumes seemed to be doing more structural work than they should have needed to. The way she moved through corridors with a conservation to it, like someone spending themselves carefully because they know the account is running low. The dressing room always cold. The HVAC team checked it at Crypto.com. Nothing wrong with the system. The room just ran cold. Here's what I didn't tell anyone that first week. I couldn't sleep on show nights. Not insomnia. I know what insomnia feels like. This was a pressure behind my sternum, low and constant, like something sitting on my chest that didn't weigh enough to name but was absolutely there. I'd lie in the hotel room and tell myself it was stress. Tell myself it was the road. Tell myself it was the divorce still working its way through my system the way grief does, slow and non-linear. I also wasn't eating the way I should have been. I wasn't restricting, I wasn't making choices, I was just forgetting. Going hours past when I should have been hungry and not noticing until I was lightheaded at the prep station. 1 week in and already losing track of my own meals. I had an explanation for everything. I was very good at that. The first time I was alone with her was an accident. My assistant called out sick on day 5, still in Oakland, second night at the arena. I covered her delivery rounds. Standard. I knocked twice the way you're supposed to and she opened the door herself. No buffer. Just her. In a white hoodie, hair back, smaller than the corridor glimpse had suggested. And she looked at me. I opened my mouth to say, "Here's your tray." 4 words, said them 1,000 times, and nothing came out. 3 full seconds of silence. She held my gaze with an expression I spent days trying to name. Not cold, not warm, something older than either. Like recognition, like she had already accounted for me before I ever knocked. She took the tray, smiled, soft, unhurried, closed the door. By the time I reached the catering station, my hands were shaking. I told myself it was just the weird energy of meeting talent up close, that it happens, that it didn't mean anything. But I couldn't get that look off my mind, like she already knew something about me that I hadn't figured out yet. The second LA night at Crypto.com, I watched the show from the wings for the first time. The interludes hit me in a way I was not prepared for. The flood, the house coming apart, the Brighter Days clinic with its clean white walls and gentle clinical horror, the inner child on the swing. I stood in the dark and felt something crack open in my chest I'd been keeping sealed for 2 years. The divorce, the house going quiet, the version of myself I'd been before I became somebody's wife and somebody's mother and somebody's ex. I was crying before I knew it was happening. 20,000 people in the dark with their faces broken open, arms raised, swaying in that unified rhythm that had no conductor. And I felt something leave me. Not metaphorically. Something moved out of my chest like a tide going out, and I stood there feeling the absence of it, not knowing what it was or where it went. I walked back to the catering station with less of myself than I'd left with. I didn't know that yet, but I know it now. That night I called my daughter. She asked about the autograph. I told her I hadn't found the right moment. She asked if Ariana was as pretty in person as she looked. What I wanted to say was, she looks like something that used to be a person and is becoming something else. What I said was, she's something, baby. She really is. I pressed my hand flat against my sternum where the pressure lived. 1 week. That's all it had been. 2 weeks in and I stopped calling it fatigue. Fatigue is something that accumulates. This was something that subtracted. Every morning I woke up in the hotel room feeling like the night had taken inventory of me and removed something small. Something I hadn't thought to protect because I didn't know it could be touched. Not sleep deprivation, not burnout, subtraction. That's the only word that fit. And I didn't like what it implied, so I kept it to myself and kept moving. We were finishing the LA run. Kia Forum in Inglewood, 3 more nights before Austin. The production had its rhythm by then, the kind of locked-in efficiency that only happens when a crew has fully surrendered to the machine of a tour. Everyone knew their place. Everyone knew their cue. I knew mine. And yet I kept catching myself standing still in the middle of tasks, hands paused over prep trays, staring at nothing, 5, 10 seconds gone before I snapped back. It was happening more. I was noting it the way you note a small noise in your car engine, not alarmed yet, but filing it. I weighed myself at the Inglewood Hotel. I don't know why I did it. I don't own a scale at home, haven't for years. Something made me step onto the one in the bathroom and look down. The number was lower than it should have been, not dramatically, not visibly, just lower. 2 weeks of forgetting to eat, catching up in a column of numbers, on a bathroom scale, at 6 in the morning, in a hotel room I would never see again. I stood there for a long time. Then I went to work. The trays kept coming back. Hers, I mean, every night. The writer specified clearly the proteins, the specific preparation, the timing relative to the show. She never touched it. I had started without consciously deciding to, keeping a log, not official. A note in my phone, date and venue and what came back. I don't know what I thought I was building toward. Evidence of something. I just needed the numbers to be somewhere outside my head. The thing I hadn't told anyone, the thing I still haven't told anyone, is that I watched her from the wings every night by then. It had stopped being a choice and become something closer to a compulsion. I told myself it was professional curiosity. I told myself I was monitoring the show flow to better time, the post-show catering. Both of those things were lies, and some part of me knew it. I watched her move through that destroyed house, and I watched 20,000 people come undone, and I stood there in the dark feeling the tide go out a little further each time. Every show took something. I didn't know from whom yet. I had a suspicion I wasn't ready to hold directly. Act 3 was the one that got me. The inner child on the swing, imperfect for you, sitting on the house frame in the dark, then warm, then one last time returning after 8 years, like something that had been waiting in a room with the lights off. I watched a woman in the 4th row completely collapse during one last time, not faint, not cry, collapse. And 2 friends catch her and hold her up, and she kept her eyes on the stage the whole time. Mascara everywhere, mouth open, making a sound I couldn't hear over the music, but could see the shape of in her throat. That shape scared me. It looked like release. It looked like something leaving a body voluntarily. After the second Kia Forum night, I stayed at the wing longer than I should have. Watched the encore. Watched We Can't Be Friends in the white dress. The arena going fully dark for the mute challenge. 20,000 people holding their breath in unison at her signal. I have stood in a lot of rooms in my career. I have never felt a room hold its breath before. It wasn't silence. Silence is the absence of sound. This was presence, dense, directed, a living quiet aimed at one small woman on a catwalk in a white dress. I thought about what it would feel like to be the thing all of that was aimed at. I thought about it longer than I should have. And somewhere in that thinking, I felt something in me go very still, like a small animal in tall grass that has just heard a sound it recognizes. I ate dinner that night. I remember being deliberate about it, sitting down, making myself finish the plate, chewing slowly like someone following instructions. It felt mechanical. It felt like operating a body I had temporarily borrowed. I ate and I stared at the wall and I thought about the log in my phone and I thought about the number on the bathroom scale and I thought about that expression she had given me on day 5 in Oakland, that look of prior recognition, and I thought, she knew. I don't know what I meant by that. I still don't, not fully, but I thought it, and it sat in my chest beside the pressure, and I didn't sleep. 3 nights left in LA, then Austin, then whatever came next. Austin was where it happened. I don't know why Austin. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was 3 weeks of accumulation finally reaching a threshold. Maybe it was just that she was ready, and whatever she decided became the shape of events around her. I've come to believe that. I didn't used to believe things like that. I do now. It was after the first Moody Center show, late. Most of the crew had cleared out. I was finishing the post-show breakdown, logging returns, reconciling the rider, keeping my hands busy when my mind was somewhere I didn't want it to be. My daughter had noticed the quiet on our last call. She said I sounded far away. I said I was tired. Neither of us believed me. I heard her before I saw her. Soft footsteps. I looked up and she was standing in the doorway in that white hoodie again, hair loose, no team around her, looking at me with that expression I'd spent 3 weeks trying to name and kept failing. She said, "You haven't been eating." Not a question. I said, "I've been noticing the same thing about you." She smiled, small, like I'd confirmed something she already knew. She came in and sat across from me at the prep table. No talent ever does that. And looked at me with those eyes that have no bottom to them and said, "It's a transfer. What's been happening to you since Oakland? It's not yours. You picked it up from the room?" I said, "What does that mean?" And she told me. Not all of it, but enough. She told me she had been practicing since she was very young, that there were systems, old ones, for moving energy between people, drawing it up through a crowd, concentrating it. She said most performers feel the high of the stage and call it performing. She had always known it was something older. She said the show was built around it deliberately. Every interlude, every act break, every moment of engineered vulnerability, architecture, not for spectacle, for transfer. She said it so plainly, the way you'd explain a process to a colleague. I asked what was being transferred. She said, whatever they're ready to let go of, the grief they brought in, the version of themselves they're done carrying. I don't take anything that isn't already loose. I thought about the woman in the fourth row during One Last Time, the shape of the sound in her throat. I said, and where does it go? She said, I've been doing this long enough to know the cost is mine to carry and not anyone else's. I understood then what the food trays meant, what the cold rooms meant, what the costumes holding her together meant. She was full of other people's released weight and carrying it the only way a body can carry what it cannot metabolize. I said, that's why you're disappearing. Something in her face shifted, not surprise. Something quieter, like relief, like she'd been waiting for someone to see it and name it without flinching. She said, I'm not disappearing. I'm becoming less dense. There's a difference. I went back to my hotel room and sat on the floor with my back against the bed and stayed there a long time. I didn't call my daughter. I didn't log anything. I just sat with the pressure in my chest and thought about what it meant that for the first time in 3 weeks, it felt like something I recognized, like something of my own. I left the tour 11 days later. Professional, clean handoff. I am always professional. I weighed myself the morning I left. The number was lower again. I stood on that scale in a Chicago hotel bathroom and felt, beneath the alarm, something else, something that shamed me, something that felt in its most honest form, like the beginning of understanding what she meant, less dense. I eat now. I'm careful about it. I have someone I talk to on Thursdays. I am okay, or becoming okay, which is its own slower kind of okay. But I think about the white dress in the dark, 20,000 people holding their breath at a signal from one small woman on a catwalk. I think about what the room takes and from whom and at what cost. She knew all of it. She knew it going in. She chose it anyway. I went in capable and grounded and solid, and I came out lighter than I should have been, in ways I am still calculating. Somewhere out there, the tour is still running, and the rooms are still full. If you made it this far, you already know this story got into something real. If it moved something in you, if it made you sit with it the way I've been sitting with it, like the video. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells the algorithm that stories like this one are worth finding. Subscribe if you want more. This channel is for the things that don't fit anywhere else. The stories that live in the space between what we can prove and what we already know is true.